All right, everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to be going through the highly anticipated card of UFC 326. We've got two fan favorites in Max Holloway taking on Charles Oliveira. It's a pretty interesting card, pretty good main card. I'm expecting some decent fights, and we're going to go through from the very beginning of the main event, starting with Gregory Rodriguez taking on Bruno Ferreira in a highly anticipated rematch from 3 years ago. Cal, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, look, I do really like RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez. I think he's coming off a couple of wins now where he's really gained some maturity. His win, he won by knockout in his last win, I believe, against Hermanson. Just double checking that now. Oh no, he actually beat Roman
Yeah,
Kopylov
he
in
beat
a
Kopylov by
decision.
decision.
The one before that was a knockout over Hermanson, and then before that over Jared Cannonier. I remember him getting a loss. Couple of years back now. Geez, he's on a bit of a tear, isn't he? I truly I like his heavy hands. I like his movement. I think he's really maturing, getting into that later stage of his career. He's really sort of entering a bit of a prime. Yeah, he's really matured since losing to Jared Cannonier back in 2025, and after that, now he's had a win over a Manson via knockout and Kopylov. So I think he's learned a lot from that. Obviously, Cannonier coming in with a lot of maturity, a lot of professional fights, a few title shots. So I see him getting through Ferreira here. What about you, Levi?
Yeah, look, I think it's definitely going to be a different fight to when they first fought 3 years ago. Obviously, he got pretty brutally knocked out by Fahea in their first fight. He lost that one pretty badly. That was 3 years ago now. Got knocked out in the first round, but he did bounce back. He pretty much he went on a bit of a tear after that. He won three in a row. Then he got stopped by Cannonier, but he has had two good wins since then. But Fahea, I don't believe he's been fighting the same sort of level of competition that
Mm.
Robocop has. He lost to Magomedov back in 2024. He beat Petrosian, McVeigh, and Vittori. I wasn't really impressed with his win over Marvin Vittori. I feel like
Mm.
you've just got a granite brick wall in front of you in Vittori, and all he really knows how to do is throw a straight 1-2. So no
Just a
one
bit
can
of
really
striking
finish him.
practice against the moving dummy who barely
Yeah,
moves.
pretty much. You got a moving boxing bag in front of you. But these guys do have fire in their hands, and yeah, I am leaning towards RoboCop. He got obviously that devastating knockout over Hermanson, who is quite chinny these days. Um, but it could you can't count out Fahea. He still also has fire in his hands. He's got a nasty submission game. So look, this one for me, it's a bit of a coin toss, but I think yeah, I'm going to lean towards the sign of Gregory Rodriguez. I think he has matured, as you said, and
Mm.
I'm going to predict a second round knockout from the
Mm.
man RoboCop. But we move now up the card. We've got the profounder unks of the lightweight division. We've got Michael Johnson taking on Drew Dober. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, look, mate, obviously not my thoughts, but his track record shows Drew Dober against any African American fighter, he's getting the win. Just history tends to repeat itself here. I don't know. He goes to a new level. He seems to become one of the greatest lightweights we've ever seen in the striking channels. He's in Ilia Topuria. Don't want to make any assumptions about his thoughts, but I'm seeing a knockout from Drew Dober against Michael Johnson. I do think Johnson still has a lot of class. He could really put up a good fight. I think was it against Zell Huber that he had a really nice fight, but got the decision win there. But yeah, no, I see Drew Dober getting this one done via round two KO.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, yeah, it's a hard one, right? They've both gone up against a very mixed bag of competition, and they've had varying levels of success. Obviously Drew Dober lost. He got knocked out by Manuel Torres earlier last year, around this time last year, but bounced back with a win, knockout win over Kyle Prepelec, which it's not the most impressive win. Johnson's on a three-fight win streak. Who he's beaten a couple up and comers. He did beat Zell Huber, the great prospect who got dismantled by King Green just the other night. But I don't know. I'm leaning towards Johnson in this fight. I think that he does have a lot of maturity. Obviously, he's getting up there in age, as is Drew Dober. But I think that his wins have aged a little bit more gracefully than Drew Dober's have. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Michael Johnson getting this one done. I see this one going
Nice.
late. It could even be a 29-28. We could see some grappling exchanges here, but I just don't trust Drew Dober. I mean, got decision by Moicano, stopped by Silva. I think that he's at the end of his run, but Johnson will remain the lightweight
Mm.
gatekeeper. So that's how I
Would
see this one
you would
playing
you
out.
say you call this fight the lightweight journeyman title, or
I would,
is that a
yeah.
bit ambitious?
Yeah, this is the journeyman belt. Absolutely.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
it'll
well,
be an interesting one. I still think it'll be a banger.
I
Um,
think it'll be exciting. I have to agree, regardless of which way it goes. Even if this ends in a decision, I think it's going to be exciting. Both these guys come to play. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. But yeah, we'll move on. So we've got our predictions there. I'm going with Drew Dober by KO, and you're going with Johnson via, was it majority
decision.
decision? Yep.
Decision.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. So now we're on to Chiwiwis and Rahul Rosas Jr. versus Rob Font. Take it away, mate. How you see that one going down? Rahul becoming of age now.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be his biggest test in the UFC. I mean, Rob Font, he's been around for a very, very long time in the division. In his last fight, he lost to Martinez, who just beat Chito Vera on the weekend. That was a unanimous decision. But, he still had some decent performances in the UFC. He is definitely getting up there in age. Hasn't won since February last year. That was over Matsumoto, who was another rising contender. We might see another gatekeeper of the division. I think that Chiwi Wiz, he's only had one loss in the UFC and he's been on a 4 fight win streak since then. A KO, a couple submissions, but he's really going to be put to the test here against Rob Font. I think that it will be his most difficult fight to date, but you can't count out the young guns. As we saw on the weekend, no one really thought that Lona Kavanaugh was going to beat Brandon Moreno, and he did quite impressively. So it's going to be a very interesting fight. I think Raul's definitely going to mature through this one, but I'm going to trust in Raul to get this one done. Do I think he finishes Rob Font? Probably not. I think it'll probably be a decision. Either way, whichever way it swings. I don't think that Rob Font will finish Raul either. But I'm going to go 29-28, Rosas Jr., get on the mic, hit a Chiwi whiz, and maybe call out someone else in the top 10 because that win will place him in the top 15 of the bantamweight division. So it'll be interesting to see what happens after that. What's your pick?
Yeah, look, I think if you go back to Chiwiwi's first loss in the UFC, he really jumped up in competition and he struggled because you're fighting these unranked fighters and running through them. Maybe you're not really going away and reflecting and going, I need to work on this part of my game or that part of my game. And he's not rushing his fights quite as often now. He hasn't fought in, pretty much a year. Last March, early March last year, he fought. Um, I think it's going to be a very, very important fight for the rest of his career, if I'm truly honest with you. As you mentioned, Rob Font been around for a long time, but he's fought the best of the best. He really has. And he's in the top 15. So it's going to be a step up. I like Rosas Jr. I'm thinking round two rear naked choke if he's to get the win. I think if he doesn't manage to get to Rob Font's back and impose his grappling on him, then he could be in a little bit of trouble. It'd be interesting to see what his gas tank's like. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think he's a round one, absolutely throw the kitchen sink at you kind of guy, but more obviously grappling heavy than striking. So it'll be very interesting. He hasn't fought a lot. He hasn't fought a lot of experienced guys. So I'm going to take him by round two rear naked choke because I do think that he has all the skills to get it done. But like if it gets into that third or later round, I could see Rob Font stealing a decision just through experience there. It's gonna be an interesting one. I'm actually really excited because I really like Raul Rosas Jr. I think he's potentially got a lot of good future fights ahead of him and could be headed towards that championship status. But it'll be interesting to see how he gets through this one if he's matured.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, good pick there. Again, could go either way. You can't count out the old dogs, but these young guys, they're on a tear, especially these Mexican fighters, as we saw on the weekend. There's a lot of talent coming out of Mexico. So that's the
Mm,
market the UFC wants to tap into, and we'll see if they can make a star out
100%.
of
And
Raul Rosas.
And I think, he entered the UFC at such a young age that you'd assume he's only going to get better. He's only
Yeah,
working with better athletes, better coaches, and learning as he goes, provided he's got the right mindset. The world's his oyster. So we'll see. But maybe we'll move on to a fight I've been excited about for months. I absolutely love both of these fighters. We've got Caio Borralho, one of the fighting nerds, versus Dricus's ugly cousin, Henry the Ritter, out of, fighting under Henry Hoof, I believe, now in Florida. But yeah, how do you see that one going down, mate?
mate, this is going to be a very interesting fight. We've got two surging middleweights who were on quite the tear. Obviously, Reina Dorita was extremely active last year. He took on the likes of Holland, Nickel, Whitaker, and Brendan Allen all in the same year. And I think if Marab has taught us anything, it's that sometimes being too active can actually get you into a bit of trouble. We saw quite a devastating fight against Brendan Allen. I mean, he was doing extremely well in the grappling in the first round, but his gas tank just did not hold up. And when you're trying to make weight 4 or 5 times a year, I think that really showed. And his
Mm,
cardio suffered extremely in that fight. I think the Holland and the Nickel wins were very impressive. And people were starting to think, okay, this guy's actually a legit contender. Made a very quick run into the rankings,
mm,
especially with that hype train derailment of Bo Nickel. That absolutely put him on the map. It was a bit of a controversial fight with Rob Whitaker, a couple fouls here and there, and the split decision was a bit controversial. But either way, he did win that fight just to get dismantled by Brendan Allen, who just happened to be the better man on that night. And then on the flip side, you've got Baralho lost to Imavov, the eye poke merchant. Those Frenchmen love to gouge your eyes out, just like his teammate Cyril Gahn, but we won't get into that. Yeah, that was a 5 round fight he had with Kaio Imavov did, and he was the better man that night as well. So both of these guys need to get back onto a win. I think this is definitely a wake up call for both of them. Uh, if we're talking about styles, I think that RDR is going to have the advantage in this fight. You know, Barelho did stuff a few takedowns from Imavov, but the tie pressure from RDR, the kickboxing, the knees up the middle, the clinch work, I think that that'll be a problem for Barelho
mm.
up against the cage, few elbows, few knees. That's where he does really good work, even at range as well with kicks. So I think if he can shut down Baralho's movement using those kicks, taking away his lead leg, I think that he'll get that one done. Whether it'll be inside the distance, I don't know, because both of these guys are quite tough, um, other than RDR's last fight. But I just think that Reina Dorita is going to get this one done. I'm going to go with RDR. Ooh, maybe a decision. I know I'm saying decision a lot, but I think that this is going to be a really, really good fight, high level technical fight. But I just see RDR edging this one out.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, look, I think, you mentioned some really good points at the beginning of your analysis there, regarding keys to victory. Both of these guys, they had weight cut issues last year. Dorita obviously fighting nearly as much as Marab, and it really showed with his cardio against Brendan Allen. He was fantastic in that first round against him, and then he just looked gassed straight away. You also got to remember Baralho. I don't know if you watched that fight live, but when he fought Imavov, he'd weighed in a couple of weeks beforehand as the backup fighter for Dricus du Plessis versus Hamzat Chimaev. And it just proves through both of their fights that, he could barely get going in his fight against Imavov, who is extremely fast and a twitchy fighter. But if you watch Imavov's other fights against, say, like a Sean Strickland, I thought that we'd see something similar there, where Kai Bravo might try and mix in a few more takedowns, but he just couldn't get him down. He couldn't get going, and he looked flat. And it was something I was unused to seeing from him because I honestly thought he'd get through Imavov. I'd tipped him there. But yeah, look, both guys have had an ample amount of time to actually rest and recover, and probably a bit of maturity in the UFC to go, look, I'm on a tear, title shots within my reach. The UFC does like to reward people jumping in on short notice and doing favors like last minute weigh-ins. But Borrello, he didn't need to weigh in for that fight.
No.
I think he regrets it now. And Derrida, same thing. No one was rushing him into that. He was originally booked against Hernandez. Hernandez fell out. He had every excuse to say, "Look, you know what? I'm fighting down the rankings." And now Brendan Allen's been, inserted himself in. He had a great fight. Not taking anything away from him. But yeah, look, for this fight, I do like what you said. Derrida with that tie clinch, knees up the middle, like he did, exposing the hype train that was once upon a time Bo Nickel. I actually think I see Caio Braulio taking this one five round. Is it a 5 rounder or a 3 rounder? This one, I
I
think it's
think
a
it's only
3 rounder.
three.
Think it's a 3 rounder. But yeah, I got him just edging it just slightly via decision. I think Derrida, if he's going to win it, he needs to make it ugly, which he does. He throws some unorthodox judo takedowns in there. Obviously, Braulio, great judoka himself. But yeah, I think he needs to make it ugly, and he needs to make it ugly early. And really sting Braulio and make him respect him, or make him respect the shots, because I do think Braulio is a bit of a cleaner striker. It's going to be interesting. I actually really hope this one hits the ground. I really want to
Mm.
see how Baralio deals with Doritta's jiu-jitsu, because I rate Doritta's jiu-jitsu. It's unorthodox, but it works. He gets finishes. He's a big guy. He's lanky. But yeah, I'm going to pick Baralio to edge it out. I think it could be a battle. I think it actually could be a bit of it's going to go one or two ways. It's either going to be a bloodbath or it's going to be boring. That's my
Yeah.
pick, but I'm going Baralio. Yeah, 29-28 decision, I think there.
Okay.
I think that's how I see it going down. But mate, it's just easing us into what we've been waiting for a very long time. We know there's going to be tears of both joy and pain, no matter who wins or loses this one. You can see in the background behind us two of our favorite fighters, probably two of almost everyone's favorite fighters. You can't really hate these guys. We've got Max Blessed Holloway versus Charles de Bronx Oliveira, two of Ilia Topuria's eldest children, just waiting to throw hands. How do you see that one going down?
This is going to be, yeah, no matter who wins this fight, there will be tears shed at the end. I really don't want either of these guys to lose, but I really don't think you could make a better BMF fight than
Mm.
this, right? Like Max Holloway, one of the most decorated featherweight champs, just behind Volkanovski and Aldo, arguably before Volk fought and probably the GOAT of the featherweight division, right up there with Aldo. And you've got Charles, who made an extremely impressive run in the lightweight division as well. And he's still that guy. Both of these guys are still, I would say, in their primes, despite being in the UFC for such a long time. They fought almost 11 years ago for the first time at featherweight. That fight was back in 2015. And I like Max won that fight, but he didn't really win that fight. He didn't knock out Charles. He was injured and was pretty much, yeah, just a very technical TKO, technical knockout. Um, but this is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, Charles bounced back after the loss from Ilya with a devastating win over Gamrot. Really, really dominant performance. And he was not afraid to walk forward,
Did that
even after
surprise you
the
that he won that
loss.
one?
Hey,
Did that surprise you that he ended up winning that one against Gamrot? I think it surprised a few
no,
people.
I knew he'd win that fight. I was very confident that he'd do exactly that. Charles walk him
Even
down
even with
Oliveira.
his chin getting knocked out, I think it was only about 4 weeks beforehand that he
It
wasn't
was a
very
few
long at
months
all.
beforehand. It was a very quick turnaround for him. I think it was only 2 or 3 months, but I
Mm,
was still confident. Gamrot's not a knockout artist. And
mm.
I knew that if it got to the nitty gritty on the ground, that Charles was going to win. Sunk in that
Walk
beautiful
away with
rear
it.
naked choke. And that
Mm.
was that. But given the stature of this fight, that it is a BMF fight, I think Charles is going to make the mistake that he made against Ilya, and that's to stand and bang. Both of these guys have said they want to win in the other's world. And really, I don't think Max is going to submit Charles Oliveira. And I don't know if I can see Charles knocking out Max the way Ilya did. Ilya was the first guy to
Mm.
do that to Max. And that's because he has, in my opinion, the best boxing in the UFC. I just don't see it going that way. I think Max is obviously a volume striker. He eats away at your body with those body kicks. Very crisp boxing, good combinations, high volume. Charles, Muay Thai stance, high guard, walk you down, and then try and take you into his world. So I don't see this going the distance. I think it'll probably be done inside of three. And as much as it kills me to say, I think that Max is going to knock him out. I
Mm.
really, really think that if one of those 1-2s lands down the pipe, I just don't think Charles can take it. Um, it's going to be a banger. I don't see Max getting it done in the same fashion as Ilya, but I think that the Blessed Express is going to run through another opponent. What's your take?
Yeah, look, it's probably pretty similar. I think you summarized it best when you said, neither of them really wants to go into each other's world, but it seems like that's what they're probably going to do because this is the BMF title fight, and we know Charles is probably going to throw caution to the wind. He's not on that title run that he once was, which was incredible before he was stopped by Islam Makhachev. I've got Max staying at range and just doing what he did to Dustin Poirier, putting on an absolute clinic here. I'm really excited. I think if Charles can get the grappling going early, that could be a really good option for him but I just don't think he will. I don't I don't know if I like his IQ coming off that Ilya fight, especially. Hopefully he has learned not to stand and bang with these guys who are these rangy strikers or have got these power punches. But yeah, I think Max is going to get a round 2 or round 3 TKO up against the fence, just overwhelm Charles with volume. But I think it's going to be a banger. I think this fight's going to live up to expectations. Both guys, how many times can you really say they've ever been in a boring fight? You can't. Win, lose or draw. I'll be happy with either guy, whoever wins. But yeah, what's next for either guy if they win? So if Max wins, what do you do with him next, Levi?
Look, if Max wins this fight, I really think that they need to give Arman Sarukian a fight. And obviously, Justin Gaethje is going to fight Ilya next. Maybe at the White House, maybe not. I think we'll find out that matchmaking soon. Ilya
Mm,
said on Aiden Ross's stream that he's going to come back in the summer. He didn't confirm if it was the White House, but that's the next fight. The interim champ has to fight the current champ, unless you're John Jones. So, I think that Arman Sarukian just fought, beat Dan Hooker, and he is the rightful number one contender. But if you want to keep him busy, you give him the winner of this fight. And if Charles wins, there's a storyline there because a lot
mm,
of people think that he won that first fight with Arman. Um,
agreed.
so he could get that one back, and then you give him the next title shot. I think that no matter who wins this fight, they fight Arman next. And then whoever wins that fight goes on to fight Ilya Taporia, who will flatline Justin Gaethje. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you there. I think the only curveball that I can sort of throw in there is if you don't fight Armin, I think you got to fight someone like a BSD. I'd
Mm,
like to see a Max versus a BSD or a Charles versus a BSD because what it does is it's the changing of the guard. The reason I say that is realistically, if you're Armin Sarukian, even though you don't want to sit out and wait, you've done enough beating a, potentially homosexual version of Dan Hooker, which has come out more recently than not. Whatever makes you happy there. Hopefully his family's all right. But yeah, BSD's been on a tear. Just beat also Dan Hooker. So I like that fight. The man wants to be active. He had a couple of losses early. He learned, he's matured. Yeah, I'd really like to see either BSD versus these two, the winner of this. BSD could also fight the loser. I
that's what
think
I
that
was
the
gonna
loser
say.
fights the
Yeah,
loser fights BSD, the winner fights Arman if he's going to fight. If not, we'll see what happens. But I would be taking my pick if it is Ilya versus Justin at the White House or sooner or later. He's probably going to win pretty early. I'd be going
yeah,
with a round 1, round 2 KO if I'm truly honest with you. So I don't think he's going to take a lot of damage. I'd like to see Ilya be a bit more active, but we also know that he's hunting that Islam Makhachev fight. I think they book both those guys. We've probably got Islam versus Ian Gary by the looks of things. Obviously speculation at this point, but I think they both need one defense, and then we can set up that super fight. So if that super fight ends up happening, maybe we do Arman versus the winner of this fight for the interim because Gaethje will be probably retired by that point, or won't be getting another title shot. But yeah, it's exciting times, man. Exciting, exciting times. This has come around quick after a couple
yeah,
of weekends of no fights and a few fight night cards. We're in for a pure banger.
yeah. Absolutely. This is a fight for the ages, and I really cannot wait. This lightweight division is returning to its roots of being absolutely stacked. I love these guys. I love Benoit Saint Denis,
Mhm.
Holloway, Oliveira, Arm, and Ilya. These guys are legit, and I really can't wait to
Mhm.
see what's next for them. For Dan Hooker, the guy loves being on the bottom. What can you say? I really don't think he likes escaping bottom position. So
No, no.
yeah, we'll
We'll
see
leave
what
that one
happens.
there. But yeah, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell notification down below. But yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Hope you enjoyed and get ready for
See you
UFC
then.
326.